So the Schofield Bible itself, it wasn't some minor subverting passages a little at a time. No, Schofield himself produced a revolutionary book that radically changed the King James Version. It was designed to create a subculture around a new worship icon, the modern state of Israel, a state that did not yet exist, but which was already in the drawing boards of the committed, well-funded authors of world Zionism itself.
Well, that was Andrew Swedger, the author of End Times Bible Prophecy, Identifying the Antichrists, the Devils in the Details. Ladies and gentlemen, we have biblical fact on our side, and the gloves are coming off. We're not messing around anymore. Just like Candace Owens, we will stand up and speak truth to the ultimate power, and that is the Zionist entity that controls our printing presses and the state of Israel. This is what you and your Christian friends, neighbors, and colleagues need to know, the very truth about the beast we face. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Before we start, just a quick word about a very valued sponsor as your dollar gets debased by the same people. Guys, do you realize on Thursday, the 2nd of October, the bankers threw more than 230 million ounces of paper silver at the market to try to tamp down the price because China's on a holiday? Well, it didn't work, and it's not going to work. Gold and silver are going much higher when priced in faltering fiat. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? Well, that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Noble Gold's specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metals transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Now, past returns are no guarantees of future results. Do your own due diligence, but visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com, helping you build a stronger future. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Sean from SGT Report. Guys, about 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with author Andrew Swedger about his book, End Times Bible Prophecy, Identifying the Antichrists, the Devils in the Details. And boy, how the world changes in just a couple of weeks. I've got Andrew back on the line, and we are going to detail and jump into the deep end regarding Christian Zionism and how it has infiltrated the church. Now, just 2 weeks ago, silver was trading at $45 an ounce when Andrew was on. Today, guys, it sailed past 50. How quickly times change. Meanwhile, Trump is touting his bold vision for peace in Gaza. Has there actually been a ceasefire? Well, Owen Schroyer shared this and I retweeted it. Nice to see the peace deal is going so well. Just a day after the ceasefire, Israel refused to cease firing. So there you go, folks. A ceasefire in Gaza. We shall see. Meanwhile, Jimmy Dore says only Satan would continue to defend this. Look at the before and the after of what has been going on in Gaza. Israel has dropped about 200,000 tons of ordnance of explosives on Gaza since October 7th, guys. For over a year, this is the equivalent to nearly 13 Hiroshima bombs. Andrew Swedger is here. Andrew, welcome back. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, Sean. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And let me just read something real quick, and then I have some sound bites to play. Important sound bites that I definitely want your reaction to, Andrew. But you wrote to me in an email after our last one. You said, we just scratched the surface. And you wrote, quote, the same people that oppose Christ are setting up Noahide laws, salivating at the opportunity to have us all in a digital prison, end quote. Where would you like to begin this conversation today regarding Christian Zionism and the infiltration of the church? Because people are waking up in droves, and I have to cite the investigation of Candace Owens into the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which has really sparked a global awakening regarding this octopus around the neck of humanity, this Zionist entity. Where would you like to begin today, Andrew?
Well, I think we start with this, and that is simply without knowing the past, it's impossible to know the present or the future. And what Christians need to understand is world history today, whether they know it or not, revolves around the posterity of Jacob and Esau. We are warned in Titus 1:14 not to give heed to Jewish fables. Sadly, we're doing the exact opposite of that because the majority of Christians believe Jews over Jesus in the Holy Scriptures. Psalm 118, verse 8 says, "It's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man." So there's this false belief, which many in the churches throughout the United States and Europe called Christian Zionism. That's where Jews are God's chosen people. The Jews rejected their Messiah, and Jesus was a Jew. All three of these things, Sean, are a lie because Christ was from the tribe of Judah, Judah, Hebrews 7:14, and Revelation 5, verse 5. So end times Bible prophecy being fulfilled, and there's some connections between this eschatology view called futurism, Christian Zionism, the Schofield Bible, and links to the ADL that I'd like to go over today, Sean.
Absolutely, and I want you to. I want you to tell people about the Schofield Bible because I reference that a lot, that being really a turning point for the powers that ought not be, the Rothschild powers that hide behind the state of Israel and the label anti-Semitism. What changed with the Schofield Bible? We'll get there in this one. But before we get there regarding the Schofield Bible, I want to play this clip from Candace, who is doing a heck of a job on her quest for truth regarding the political assassination in the broad daylight of Charlie Kirk. And in this clip, she warns those who killed him. Who is they? Well, I think we're all starting to figure it out pretty quickly, even though Candace takes heat for being anti-Semitic for merely doing this kind of research. And she warns them, whoever killed Charlie Kirk. Listen to this.
What is going on? Like, guys, you got to just give up. It's going to come out. Whatever it is going to come out. You would have to, and I wouldn't put it past you, you'd have to get rid of all of us. You got like 7 billion people you've got to ethnically cleanse right now if you want us to just forget about the Charlie Kirk story. It's no one's forgetting it, okay? Not the ballistics guys on YouTube that we're all listening to. And no one's going to let this one go because, and by the way, that's your fault. I don't know whose sadistic idea it was to make this a public execution, but let me tell you where you made the mistake, okay? In 1963, when JFK was shot, people didn't watch it on TikTok. People mostly read about it, and then the feds lied about it, they heard about it. But to be able to have us watch that live around the world, you traumatized all of us. And not in the way that you meant to. You meant to traumatize us and maybe and make us fearful and scared. And yeah, that happened. Then you made us really angry that corruption is allowed to be like this, just so blatant and so in our face, looking at us. We're nothing. And what are you going to do about it? That's the attitude. What are you going to do about it? You wanted to traumatize us and then to, on a dime, flip and look us in the face and go, how dare you ask questions? People are grieving. Yeah, we're grieving because you assassinated Charlie Kirk in front of the entire world. If you had pretended he slipped and fell on some ice in the winter, maybe you wouldn't have this response. But you got our attention because you went after our attention. You wanted this for whatever sadistic reason. You wanted this to be a public execution, and that disturbs me. So you get what you get, okay? This is the internet generation. You get TikTokers that are asking questions. You get our military guys. You get our ballistic boys. You get the TikTok medium psychic ladies. You get everybody. All of us are here, okay? It's like a high school class. You got all different types of characters here, but we're running this, okay? We're running this. And we're not going to be nice to any substitute teachers that you try to throw in there and try to calm down. Nope, we're not doing that, okay? We're not calming down. We're pretty upset, and we're going to stay upset.
Okay. Why'd I play that long soundbite? Well, stay tuned because I have another Candace soundbite to play towards the end of this show. But Candace had 338,000 people around the world watching her stream on Thursday night live. Friends, the whole world is paying attention to this. And now terms like Zionism, Zionist Israel, these are terms now in the public town square globally. Andrew, I'm coming back to you. I can't overstate how important what Candace is doing right now on her show every single day. It is history unfolding in real time. And I would suggest everybody stop listening to the haters on X, like attorney Robert Barnes, like Ashton Forbes, like everybody who calls her a retard and an idiot and anti-Semite. I would tell you to listen to every single show Candace broadcasts and decide for yourself. Andrew Swedger, I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk by an entity that shall go unnamed, at least for the time being, has woken up the whole world.
Oh, I think, Sean, and I think this is actually an exciting time from that perspective that we're living in, because the Jews control the media, and a lot of the propaganda obviously is from them. And so there's a lot of deception that they put out there. Matter of fact, Bibi Netanyahu and his crew are now paying paid influencers to put out this propaganda and lies. And as I said in our first interview, Sean, Matthew 7:20 says, "Ye shall know them by their fruits." And that word devil in Greek means false accuser or slanderer. It's an adjective describing a noun, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to come after Candace. They're going to come after you. They're going to come after me, and whoever else is willing to stand up for the truth and righteousness. And that word Satan, again, I want to remind people, is an adjective that describes a noun, and it means adversary. So these people are adversarial towards Christ, they're adversarial towards Christians, and they're adversarial towards the truth.
Well, you got that right. And that leads me to another soundbite that I absolutely must share with you. I shared it with the audience just the other day, but I've got to share it with you because I want your learned knowledge, biblically speaking, about who the ancestors are of these people. I'll play that soundbite in just 1 second, but I also want to add for the audience that Candace is being called an anti-Semite and an idiot and a retard and disrespectful to the dead Charlie Kirk because she's asking important questions, because she's talking to eyewitnesses, because she's created her own timeline, which absolutely destroys the Fed's timeline. Candace believes firmly this was a military operation. The question is, who were the operatives? Beyond that, we now know that people at Turning Point have been lying about the pressure Charlie Kirk was under to fall in line with the state of Israel, to kiss the hand, to bend the knee, to go to Israel, to visit with Bibi Netanyahu, and to ultimately take $150 million in bribe money for Turning Point, and Charlie said no. And in fact, at the very last hour, Charlie said, "I can no longer stand with Israel. You forced my hand here." And according to Candace, a couple of days before he died, he confided in 3 people, 2 of whom she says have the texts, that he was afraid, quote, "they are going to kill me." Now, who's they? I wonder. Andrew, here's what I wanted to play for you and the audience. I've never, ever heard a Jew say these things so matter-of-factly, so in the public square. They're not trying to cloak anything anymore. This is what they truly believe. This is a Jewish female rabbi at a synagogue in New York City.
And on September 24th, the Central Synagogue in Manhattan explained how the gods demand human blood for humanity to survive.
The greatest lie humanity tells itself is that we have outgrown human sacrifice. We call it by different names now and make our offering to different gods. We offer young men we call soldiers. The designation means that their mothers cry less when they die. We call masses of humanity collateral damage and turn our eyes away from the pictures of their lifeless bodies as we sip our morning coffee. And the truth is, we don't do it because we are heartless. We do it because we believe that it is necessary for the world to keep running. We do it because we believe that the gods whose favor we so desperately seek, freedom, security, prosperity, flourishing, that they demand blood as the price of their favor. We do it because we cannot see any other choice. When Abraham prepares to sacrifice Isaac, he is just accepting the same bargain of blood we still accept today. that some need to die for the world to flourish.
Andrew, I could see you shaking your head as you listened to that. The audience couldn't. I'm coming back to you. I'll refrain from speaking, but I will follow that up with some harsh words in a second. Your thoughts on what you just heard?
Wow, Sean, that's truly unbelievable. I want to start with Proverbs 8:36 that says the following: He that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. So these blood sacrifices is nothing but death. But we see this in the congenital nature, actually, of the Jews. When you think of Planned Parenthood was started by a Jew, Margaret Sanger, and Planned Parenthood is a Jewish corporation that owns Sesame Street today. And what do? They abort babies. Aborticide. It's wicked and repulsive. We can take this back in scripture to the time of Moloch and the child sacrifice that we see in the scriptures. And we read here in John 8:44, Jesus told these Edomite Jews, who this woman is today, of that posterity, you are of your father the devil, and the lust of the father of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Who was a murderer from the beginning? Cain killed Abel. We see right out of the womb part of the fulfilling of Genesis 3:15, where God said he was going to put this enmity between two different seeds. Christ then connects the blood of Abel to Zacharias into this entire group of people, this entire family, this posterity, this race in Luke 11:50 and 51. And the Judean Edomites were the ones that Christ said in John 10:26, they are not his sheep. They're the ones that killed Jesus Christ, 1 Thessalonians 2:14 and 15, and the blood of Christ is on their children, Matthew 27:25, who we call the Jews today.
Okay, so just so everybody understands, having this conversation about a group of people who have these particular beliefs and say so publicly in their synagogues is not being anti-Semitic. Okay, it doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it anyway. And I want to repeat what this woman said. She says, we do it not because we're heartless. We do it because the gods, plural, whose favor we so desperately seek, demand blood for the price of their favor. Have we gotten nowhere in 2,000 years? Andrew Swedger, God sent his only begotten son, so all of this could stop. But the Jews seem hell-bent on continuing with this behavior in perpetuity and openly talking about it in their synagogues in New York City. Now, you tell me how that is Judeo-Christian values. You tell me how that is anything Christ-like in any way, shape, or form. And you tell me why the Christian religion should be lumped together with this particular belief sect.
Well, that term itself, Christianity, is actually an oxymoron, to say the least, because the Jews believe in the Talmud and we believe in the Holy Bible. And the truth of the matter is this, Sean, they are the antichrists who are many. That's 1 John 2:18. They oppose Christ. Christ said, I'm the way, I'm the truth, and I'm the life, and no man cometh to the Father but by me. And the Jews denied that Christ was God in the flesh in the first century, and they still deny today that he is God in the flesh who came to save his people. And in 1 John 2, verse 22 and 23, it says, all those who deny that Christ is the Son, basically from the Father, and denieth that those two, the Father and the Son, are antichrist, and they all deny him today. So that's who we're dealing with here. We're dealing with these false accusers, these slanderers, these people who are adversarial towards Christ and Christians. Matter of fact, Sean, we're going to get to a point here when we get into this digital society where I foresee that these Noahide laws will come into effect.
Well, and I want you to explain for the audience what Noahide laws are. And why do they call them Noahide laws? I guess there would be nowhere to hide if you criticize the Jews in the future, right?
Well, that's right, Sean. This was signed into act by President Bush in 1991. These are some particular laws that really oppose Christ, Christianity, and the Bible itself. And really, they're setting us up for this future time where they will have this right to slaughter Christians or all those that oppose them. And it's really interesting because when you look at I want to read something here about the Scofield Bible here real quick, Sean, and I know we're going to get into this in greater detail, but it's really interesting here when we look at this and the origins of this, because we really need to connect the dots. And it says this, I put this in my notes: the most convincing evidence of the unseen Zionist hand that wrote the Scofield notes to the King James Bible is the contents of the notes themselves, for only Zionists could have written them. Oxford edited the former 1945 edition of the Scofield Reference Bible in 1967 at the time of the Six-Day War, when the Jews occupied Palestine, and the footnotes of the King James Bible presumptuously granted the rights to the Palestinians' land to the Jews and specifically denied the Arab Palestinians any such right at all. One of the most brazen and outrageous of these newly inserted footnotes states the following: for a nation to commit the sin of anti-Semitism brings inevitable judgment. That's page 19 and 20, the footnotes on Genesis 12, verse 3. Interesting to note real quick here in 1 John 3, verse 4, it says this: sin is the transgression of the law. The law wasn't even given to these Edomite Jews, but only to the 12 tribes of Jacob, Israel, which is Psalm 147, verse 19 and 20, Amos 3, 1 and 2. And Paul told us in Romans 5, 11 and 12, where there's no law, sin isn't imputed. So these notes inserted into the Scofield Reference Bible are simply Antichrist Jew footnotes. These are a lie. That's not scripture at all.
All right. Well, explain to the audience, too, where the term Zionism comes from. So we've been talking about it right out of the gate. I mentioned Christian Zionists. I mentioned Israeli Zionism. I should have mentioned, if I didn't, Rothschild Zionism. You know, maybe I'm simplifying it, but I always come back to the House of Rothschild as sort of being the father, the birthplace of modern day Zionism. It is a political ideology far more than a spiritual belief. And as Joe Biden has said repeatedly when he was a senator, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, and I'm a proud Zionist. That was Joe Biden. Explain to people what Zionism is and where it came from. And can you also correlate a relationship between the Scofield Bible, Zionism, and the House of Rothschild?
Well, yes, that there is a lot there to unpack here, Sean. And we start with in 1896 by a Jew. His name was Herzl, was his last name. And he essentially wanted to create this Zionist state, a homeland for the Jewish people. And through this process of him wanting to do this in 1897, then there was basically they conveyed in Basel, Switzerland, and they started talking about how can we have this resolution to aim of this Zionist created state for the Jewish people in a homeland secured in Palestine. Okay, so that was 1897. But if we go back a little bit in time itself, we see that here's a connection with the Scofield Bible. So actually, the Scofield Bible, where this all came from, is in 1826. There was a man by the name of Samuel Maitland in England who picked up this futuristic view of eschatology that came from a Jesuit by the name of Ribera back in 1585. That's where the origins of this futuristic view of this rapture, this Antichrist, that they're going to build this temple and he's going to sit in this temple and then all of world history is going to wind up in 3.5 years. Well, anyways, that goes back to that time frame. So after he made this futurist view and published that in 1585 AD, for 3 centuries it sat within the Catholic Church itself until Maitland, this Protestant, picked it up in 1826. And in 1830, John Nelson Darby also picked up on this view of futurism that Maitland was promoting. And he came to the United States between 1850 and 1860. He came several times to the United States. And that view of futurism itself was a profound influence on Cyrus Scofield. And Scofield himself then, with the help of the Oxford Publishing Company, published that Bible. And we can get into that in more detail, Sean, but that's really kind of that in a nutshell right there.
All right. So can you just encapsulate briefly, give me the elevator pitch about what exactly changed in the Schofield Bible? Which words were introduced or which group of people? What was changed from the historical accuracy of the Bible for generations? What was changed specifically with the Schofield Bible that Christians have fallen prey to now in the modern narrative? They buy this modern narrative that the state of Israel can do no wrong and we must bless Israel if we too are to be blessed. And if we curse Israel, or anything Israel does wrong, we too shall be cursed. What changed with the Schofield Bible that allowed them to sell that lie?
Well, first and foremost, it was heavily funded by Jews itself, and it became a bestseller in America for nearly 100 years. And he had the funding backed by the Jews. So the Schofield Bible itself, it wasn't some minor subverting passages a little at a time. No, Schofield himself produced a revolutionary book that radically changed the King James Version. It was designed to create a subculture around a new worship icon, the modern state of Israel, a state that did not yet exist, but which was already in the drawing boards of the committed, well-funded authors of world Zionism itself. The Oxford University Press owned the Schofield Reference Bible from the beginning, as it indicated in the copyright. But Schofield himself received handsome royalties as a result. Okay, Oxford advertisers and promoters succeeded in making Schofield Reference Bible with its Christian Zionist footnotes a standard for interpreting scripture in Judeo-Christian churches, seminaries, Bible study groups, and has been published in at least four editions since the introduction in 1908, which remains one of the best-selling Bibles ever, Sean.
Well, let's just pay it forward and remind people who the Rothschilds are. Lord Jacob Rothschild, he seems so docile and, just seems like a caring old man, but he happens to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars, folks. Worth a lot more than Jeff Bezos, one generation's wealth, Jeff Bezos. Here's Lord Jacob Rothschild being confronted by Luke Rudkowski back in the day. I think this was around 2010, 2011, 2012, something like that. And the awakening has only spread since Luke confronted Lord Jacob Rothschild.
The Bilderberg, you weren't there?
No.
What went on last year?
No, I wasn't there last year. I think that was my cousin.
The cousin was there?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Do you have a couple minutes for us, Mr. Rothschild? We have a few additional questions.
I guess my question inside of, because I was saying that the Federal Reserve is one of these organizations, one of these organizations that a lot of people say is the source of inhumane thoughts all across the world because it's a private bank.
That was started by your family.
No, it's completely untrue. I was asked that earlier. It really isn't true.
Jekyll Island, 1913, sir. I mean, but sir, just one thing, we could go on about how, your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
sorry for the quick break. We all know we're under attack, and not just from the air we breathe or the food we eat. We're being exposed to mRNA technology, injected into the food supply, spreading through shedding, and now 5G radiation saturating our environments with frequencies we still don't fully understand. These threats disrupt our biology at a cellular level, weakening immunity, inflaming our systems, and damaging our gut, the control center of our health. That's why I take Kamichi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition. Each capsule is packed with over 900 strains of probiotics, live enzymes, and antioxidants to help flush out toxins, rebuild gut balance, and fortify your immune system against the daily assault. Kamichi 1 is all natural and 100% made in the USA by a company that truly cares about your health and freedom. So if you want to defend your body naturally, this is where to start. Right now, exclusively for my viewers, you can get 25% off Kamichi 1 by using code SGT at mybrightcore.com/SGT. Or, better yet, call 888-688-0642 for up to 50% off, free shipping, only when you call. The link and information is below.
Your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
I'll pause it there. I should get subtitles for that. I know that was difficult to understand, but he was confronted about the Rothschild Rockefeller Federal Reserve, and he was told, we the people are waking up, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. We know the truth. Anybody that knows about Jekyll Island and the formation of the Federal Reserve in 1910 and launch it in 1913 knows the truth about the private bank and the fact that the Rothschilds own all of the central banks around the entire world, folks. And before I play this soundbite from Candace regarding what's going on in Gaza, I'll come back to Andrew for his comment on what we just played. Lord Jacob Rothschild and the Zionist entity owning our money printing system for over 100 years, Andrew, and printing us into oblivion, buying up all of the politicians with the bribe money, owning everything of real consequence in the world, the corporations, the money printers themselves. Your comment on Lord Jacob Rothschild. I wonder where his soul rests today as we're having this conversation.
Well, Sean, it's interesting you bring up that point because Revelation 17:17 began to be fulfilled in the mid-1600s, and it's being fulfilled today. And it says this, for God hath put in their hearts, that's us, to fulfill his will and agreed to give their kingdom unto the beast and until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So in the mid-1600s, these European banks are being set up by this Jewish banking family called the Rothschilds. And then the total emancipation of the Jews was the French Revolution in 1795, where the Jews funded all sides of the war, and the white race was being slaughtered on behalf of these Jews, which were profiting and enriching, and they were being enriched as a result of this. So the United States handed over our kingdom to the beastly system in December 23rd, 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, which you just said earlier. Now, in 1 Timothy 6:10, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And transhumanist Antichrist Jew Henry Kissinger said the following, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control the continents. Who controls the money controls the world. Now, this is the fulfilling, Sean, of Genesis 27:40, where there was going to come a day where Esau's posterity was going to have dominion over us. So now getting back to Zionism and the state of Israel being set up. As we recall from history in 1917, the Balfour Declaration that was being made, and I have it here, and your audience knows it, but we don't all have it memorized. So I just wanted to bring up a couple things here real quick. And it says the following, on behalf of His Majesty government, this is dear Lord Rothschild, on behalf of His Majesty government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspiration, which has been submitted to and approved by the cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national homeland for the Jewish people. And then it goes on to say this, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may be prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. Well, I think the Jews have forgotten the Balfour Declaration today, Sean.
Well said. No, I appreciate you doing that. And by the way, there's a famous video that was shot, an interview that was done with Lord Jacob Rothschild just a couple of years before he died, and it was shot at Wadson Manor. Now, it's said that the Rothschilds donated that massive castle, that massive estate, to the UK government. Imagine the multi-generational wealth it would take to build such a place. And in Wadson Manor, to this day, is the original copy of this Balfour Declaration written to Lord Rothschild on behalf of the UK government. Now, what I want to do, and I think the timing is just perfect here, is I want to play Candace Owens' warning to the Zionists, to the regime, and to Donald J. Trump about what has gone on in Gaza. It is an absolute genocide of the first order, carried out in broad daylight for us all to see over the past year, okay, since October 7th. We're having this conversation on October 10th. For more than a year, Israel has been performing an ethnic cleansing in Gaza, of Palestine. And Candace Owens has some very, very wise words for anybody who thinks that they will eventually benefit from that land, that blood-soaked land. Listen to this.
This is our never again, okay? This is a Holocaust. The Holocaust just happened. A real Holocaust just happened. We will never forget this. You need to tell your children what happened in Gaza. You need to tell them exactly who did it, exactly whose families were involved in this. And when you hear in the future somebody tell you, like, we're going to Gaza Beach for a vacation, you need to look at them Like, they are the absolute vermin of our society, because they are. They are. Their children will be cursed, okay? You go and you play in the sand where you know that your forefathers planned to mass murder children, you will be cursed. Every person who steps foot on that, every family that is set to inherit what they did, they will be cursed. Your children's children will be cursed. Gaza belongs to nobody but the Palestinians. So when you begin to move the Israelis in there, and when the Trump Hotel gets built on there, I caution the rest of the world to stay far away from that cursed land, because something is coming. You can't commit that much evil in broad daylight and not think it's going to come back to haunt you. God bless. May he get his Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay, so she's firing nukes literally at the powers that be, and I can't even begin to overstate how much courage it takes to do that under any circumstances with any subject of consequence. But with this particular subject, Israel, Zionism, the genocide in Gaza, and the rebuilding of Gaza as a Gaza beach with hotels for rich people, I think she's absolutely right. And I will never step foot in Gaza unless it's to go and try to help people who are being murdered there right now. I think she's absolutely right. Andrew, those people will be cursed.
Well, yeah, we already know from Isaiah 34:5, we're told that these people of Idumea, that's these Edomite Jews that are with us today, are the people of God's curse. But here's the thing, these Jews, this is not the first time. We think back also to 1917, what also happened during that time, in addition to the Balfour Declaration, was the Jewish Bolshevik Revolution. And then we get into the Holodomor, and we see that over 20 million Christians were slaughtered at this time on behalf of the Jews. The Jews were slaughtering them. They were stealing their food, and they were destroying their agriculture. And it was just a massive genocide of all these white Christians, Sean. And so I think folks really need to brace themselves, because I think history will repeat itself. Wait for this digital prison and the NDAA. And when that is basically in place, then they can come and they can confiscate all of our belongings at any time if we oppose them, if we stand up against these lies, against these murderers, against these wicked antichrists, whom are many.
Well, let's turn our attention then to Noahide laws, and let's try to really slice this open for people so that they fully understand. What, in your mind, are the Noahide laws? And the limited knowledge I have about this extends to going back to, I think, the George Bush Senior administration, where I think I recall him meeting with Jewish leaders and essentially signing this stuff into law. But that was an awfully long time ago. Bring us up to speed on Noahide laws, what it exactly means specifically, and is it actually a law right now, or is it just unenforced? Help us understand.
Well, that's a good question, Sean. And one of the biggest concerns I guess I want to bring up about the Noahide laws from a Christian perspective is those that believe in Jesus Christ and that he's their savior, that they're the Christians. Those are the people they call that blasphemy against their Noahide laws, because of course Jesus Christ is not the savior of these Jews. And so blasphemy could be the killing of that individual. And so I think when we get into this cashless society, any of those people that oppose these Jews are going to fall under this category of, especially if they're Christians and they stand up against them, are going to be in the situation where they may end up losing their life for the namesake of Christ. So I encourage Christians, this is the time to stand up now. Do not be afraid. Remember, we either gather with Christ or we scatter against him. Christ said in Matthew 10:33 that if we deny him, he will deny us in front of the Father. We don't want to deny Christ. And it may come down to this, Sean, very point where we either have to deny Christ if we want to live in this temporal life for the comforts and ease in their digital prison, or we stand up for Christ and we may lose our life for his name's sake. So Christians need to be prepared for what is truly coming, what is around the corner. There's no way to stop this digital prison. And honestly, when you look at it, it's all Jewish corporations that are putting this together. When you have Google, when you have Microsoft, when you have Palantir, when you have ChatGPT, when you have X, when you have Facebook, they're all Jewish corporations, and the banks ran by the Jewish corporations. So they had this all pretty well locked up. And so it's going to come to the point, Sean, where I believe Christians are going to really have to have their faith in God and in his word.
We're going to go back to that clip of the female Jewish rabbi saying what she said so publicly, so proud of it, because it's truly unbelievable. And I guess in the future, guys, you won't be able to criticize this type of speech when they openly tell you who they are and that they do engage in human sacrifice just under the guise of their wars.
And on September 24th, the Central Synagogue in Manhattan explained how the gods demand human blood for humanity to survive.
The greatest lie humanity tells itself is that we have outgrown human sacrifice. We call it by different names now and make our offering to different gods.
Okay, they make their offering to different gods, not the one true God of the Bible. They rejected Jesus Christ, so they're still stuck 5,000 years ago, sacrificing human beings to their gods. And folks, you're not going to be able to criticize them for this in the future.
We offer young men we call soldiers, as if the designation means that their mothers cry less when they die. We call masses of humanity collateral damage and turn our eyes away from the pictures of their lifeless bodies as we sip our morning coffee. And the truth is, we don't do it because we are heartless. We do it because we believe that it is necessary for the world to keep running.
They don't do it because they're heartless. No, the Rothschild bankster war machine of perpetual death that includes people in your family going back generations, I'm sure. Many of us have lost people in these wars. But have they? Have they lost any people in these wars? We'll continue. We'll continue. But remember, they don't do this because they're heartless, folks. They do it because they seek the favor of their gods through blood sacrifice.
We do it because we believe that the gods whose favor we so desperately seek, freedom, security, prosperity, flourishing, that they demand blood as the price of their favor.
Okay, Andrew, help me understand. Which specific god or gods demand human sacrifice? Which god do they worship so devoutly that demands human blood as the offering? To me, that would be Satan or Lucifer himself. Am I wrong?
Well, Sean, their God is a false God itself, and they're making these sacrifices onto these false gods because we know there's only one true God of heaven and earth, and they're not making the sacrifices to him because all of those animal sacrifices were abolished in the past. My concern, though, is Christians are going to be afraid, just like they were in the first century, where it says in John 7:13, howbeit no man spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. So these people and their blood cult is absolutely wicked and wrong. And I want to read you a quote here from Abe Foxman, the former president of the ADL, who's a Jew, and he said the following: Jews explain the goal of diversity in only in every white countries. We are ready to implement our most important and ambitious program, one that will finally and totally remove from existence the impediments of our absolute control of this earth. I speak of the death of the white race, the complete removal of all means of reproduction of the so-called Aryan race. We now control the destiny of this race. It is now time to make sure the white race becomes extinct through miscegenation and having virtually zero birth rate. We have all enjoyed the vision repeated all over this world every day of the last white children playing with little dark children and knowing that they are being set up for their eventual destruction. We can ruin the ancient pure bloodlines of the Aryan children by convincing him or her of the altruism of begetting interracial children. So going beyond this, Sean, like you'd mentioned before, these wars, every single war that I mentioned, from the French Revolution to the American Revolution to the Civil War to World War I, World War II, is all funded by the Jews. And primarily it's one group of people being slaughtered, and that's the white race. And the Jews, if we remember from the first interview, their goal is to wipe out the white race by the year 2100. We are now down to 8% of the world's population and dwindling.
Well, I also want to point out for folks, that what they're doing to Candace Owens and what they love to do with anyone who disagrees with them is engage in character assassination. And when that doesn't work, then they try to bankrupt you, or they'll try to do both at the same time. And I want to share a quote because I think Woodrow Wilson was talking about exactly what we're talking about when he wrote this. Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confided to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacture, they are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. And friends, when character assassination and bankruptcy doesn't work and you still keep on talking, well, that's when they pass laws criminalizing your speech. So here's Liz Churchill retweeting a 1-minute portion of another excellent Greg Reese report about the Noahide laws.
1891, the Noahide laws were signed into U.S. law by Skull and Bones member George Bush. Once these laws are practiced openly, it will be blasphemy to call Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior, punishable by death. They want to bring us back to the days of blood sacrifice. Whether you believe or not, the culture of compassion, mercy, and love is Christian. Christ ended the days of blood sacrifice. Christ forgave us of our sins, all of us, liberated us, so that no man could stand between the individual and God. It's no wonder why they hide in the shadows. With a religion based on their own weakness, their so-called magic is nothing other than ruthless thuggery and deceit. Like broken animals, they fear the true light and want to drag you into the darkness with them. Don't let them.
All right. Well, we'll pause it there. Greg Reese, a 2-for-1 today from Greg Reese. Unbelievable job, Greg. Okay. Well, that's very dangerous speech, but is it getting less dangerous? Because now we're reaching the tipping point, Andrew, where people all over the world are talking about this, and people all over the world are recognizing how pure evil this is, not only what has gone on in Gaza, but potentially what happened to Charlie Kirk, an open-air public political assassination that we're told was pulled off by a lone gunman when nothing about the official story adds up. Is it safer now to have this conversation, or will it always be dangerous? I guess, a cornered dog is always dangerous, Andrew.
Yes. Well, I'm really happy the truth is getting out there, Sean, and other Christians should be rejoicing at these truths because the deceptions are so great and so many believe the false beliefs of Christian Zionism and worship these Jews who are doing all this slaughtering, who are persecuting our people and everybody, not just Christians. They're going after Muslims too. It doesn't matter to them. This is just who these Jews are. This is their congenital nature. They hate Christ. They hate Christians. And I think they're just a big death cult. I hate to say it, Sean, but I really hope that more and more people will continue to wake up, that this is just the beginning of it, that we'll have the courage to stand up for truth and righteousness, that will stand up for Jesus Christ and all those that oppose Christ. So I think we have some good momentum going, and I hope and pray it continues.
All right. Well, I hope and pray we're not just being naive, but it is our job to speak truth. And that's what Candace is doing. And again, I can't think of anything more courageous. In fact, I can't point to anybody more courageous right now than Candace Owens. She is taking on this multi-horned beast almost single-handedly, and she shows up every single day. Now, she's going to take 12 days off for a little vacation. I hope she has protection. Oh, and by the way, she said in 2024, if she ends up dead, it's the Zionists. Full stop. She said, if I die, it was the Zionists. Andrew, I guess I'll give you the final word, and we don't have to quite wrap it up, but one last subject I wanted to ask you about was the digital prison that they want to build. They're building it quite effectively in the UK. They're jailing people for their speech, for memes. For memes. If your neighbor doesn't like what you posted on Facebook, you'll get a knock, knock, knock on the door from the British police, and you might just end up in jail. Many already have. So the digital prison is rolling out a course in King Charles, United Kingdom, and in Canada, also a parliamentary government under the control of King Charles. We got a whole different government in our nation. Sure, it's corrupt, but we do have a constitution, a Bill of Rights, and a much better system. Really, the only free system on planet Earth. Am I naive to even believe that at this point? Or are they just going to roll out digital prisons here, a digital prison here, Andrew?
Well, interesting that you bring that up, because time will really tell. Everything does appear that we are heading into that digital prison. That transhumanist Antichrist Jew Klaus Schwab told us that by 2030 we would own nothing and be happy. So I think a lot is going on behind the scenes that is misdirected, that most of us are distracted by what I call weapons of mass distraction, all these other things that aren't quite as important as to what's really going on behind the scenes. But the truth of the matter is, if they do get us into this digital prison, which is their goal, we will be on the brink of Jewish supremacy over the entire world, because they'll have total control over the money system itself. So if people are confused about that word Jew in the Bible, and there's a lot of people confused, especially the Christian Zionists, but we have friends, family members, neighbors, clergy especially, that are confused about that word Jew. In my book, End Times Bible Prophecy, Identifying the Antichrist, the Devil's in the Details, I go through this word Jew every time it's listed in the New Testament. So we're going to know whether it's a Judean Israelite or a Judean Edomite. And Christ told us in Matthew 7:20, you shall know them by their fruits. So if you're confused about that word Jew, my book is going to clear that up for you quickly, or somebody you know, a loved one, quickly, because the sooner we can get more and more people to the understanding of who these people truly are, that really hate a lot of us and want to have total control of this planet, the better off we'll be. So I really want to encourage people, and you can get this at www.mustreadbooks.info. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, you bet. I'll leave a link below. The good news, bad news of it is that I am starting to feel a little bit, so is my wife, that, both of these parties, the right and the left, they really are two sides of the same coin, controlled by the same people. And I pray to God that's not true. For instance, Trump has said, never under his watch will there be a central bank digital currency issued, a track and trace coin by these same banksters that own the fiat printing presses. Okay, well, that's great. But meanwhile, they want real ID. Kristi Noem is demanding everybody run out and get a real ID. Show me your papers, please, for travel. No, thank you. I will not comply. I will stick with my passport when I travel on an airplane. What about the digital prison they're rolling out concerns you the most? Is it checks on the internet? Like you need to have a thumbprint scan or a face scan to even get onto social media to make a comment? Is that what scares you the most? Or is it a central bank digital currency that somehow they slip under the tent?
Well, I think it's both, Sean, because once they do slip in this digital currency, I think that they're going to do underneath the tent, and then they attach this to a social credit score. So anybody who opposes them may not have access to the internet, or you may have to have some sort of biometrics in order to access the internet. And then they'll take the next step, saying that you need to get an injection in order to be able to have access to the internet or to be able to travel. So they're going to continue to go with this dystopia. But when Trump says that, well, they're not going to roll this out on his watch, Proverbs 22:7 says this: the rich rules over the poor, the borrower is a servant, and that word means slave in Hebrew, to the lender. And the truth of the matter is, we're in debt to the Jewish banking system, so Trump can say anything he wants, but at the end of the day, they're the ones pulling the strings.
Yeah, they are. Yep. We'll show the website. Here it is, mustreadbooks.info. You can get the book right here. Support the author. End Times Bible Prophecy, Identifying the Antichrists, the Devil's in the Details. Andrew, I appreciate it. I mean, this is really dangerous territory about which to have conversations, but as Candace has said, this has to be our line in the sand. It is truly a battle between good and evil at this point, and I really thank you for your expertise on this subject today.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
All right, we appreciate you. There he goes, guys. Andrew Swedger, you can get the book. The link is below, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. Boy, I know this one is a rabble-rouser, folks, but it's time we have these conversations because, the enemy is having conversations about us. That's why there are Noahide laws. Guys, I'll remind you every single day for free, check us out to get the real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
We are an occupied nation. And if it's going to take women like having to speak up and say that to make permission, like to give permission to men to do the same, then I'm happy to be the first person, okay? I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1000% blame the Zionists.